Hey everyone, how are you doing? It's me by birth, Alex William Smith, better known in my stage name of Jonathan Royle of magicalguru.com and circusofthemind.net. It's Friday, it's let me work this out, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19th of September 2025, meaning that this coming Wednesday, the 24th of September 2025, is when at 9 p.m. on ITV they start broadcasting the 7-part drama series The Hack, about the phone hacking scandal and also how it ties into the Daniel Morgan murder, Britain's most investigated but as yet unsolved murder inquiry. And there's media corruption, police corruption, galore included in that. Well worth watching. That said, the series is a dramatisation. It's based on true facts, but there's some stuff missing. There's definitely some stuff missing because it's based on a book called Hack Attack by the journalist Nick Davies, and that's just been reissued, and I've seen that book, and you can see another video on my Celebrity Hypnotist YouTube channel where I review the contents of that book. A few key observations. Number one, early on in that book, he mentions that one of his key sources in helping to expose the phone hacking at Rupert Murdoch's News International publications was a journalist called, and he just uses the nickname York, Y-O-R-K. I happen to know, and it's also in the public domain, as we'll come to in a minute, for people who bother to open their eyes and look at the facts, that individual was a journalist called Christine Joanna Hart. Indeed, there is a link above or below this video to her blog where she goes into that information about how she gave Nick Davies that information, how it was her that introduced a gentleman linked to intelligence agencies such as MI5, MI6 to the Greg Miskiw at the News of the World. So you could argue, therefore, she inadvertently introduced phone hacking to the Murdoch papers. This is backed up not just by a blog at the link above or below, but in a book called Shadowman by Mulcaire, the person who's held up to hate as a person hacking Millie Dowler's The Murdered Schoolgirl's phone, whereas the truth is he didn't. At least he wasn't the first person to. It'd already been hacked, and the police knew this, and the evidence and such of that is in his book Shadowman by Mulcaire, and he's also had confirmation from the Dowler family lawyer, Mark Lewis, who represented them, that Mark Lewis never associated Mulcaire with any wrongdoing in relation to Millie Dowler, and the same was stated in legal proceedings by the Dowler family's barrister, David Sherborne. The rabbit hole in relation to the whole Millie Dowler thing involves police corruption, police informants, and cover-ups galore. It's fully explained in detail in the book Shadowman by Mulcaire, and indeed on page 122 of the 294-page Kindle ebook, Glenn clearly states it was Christine Hart who introduced Greg Miskiw to John Boyall. On page 97 of 294 in his book Shadowman, Mulcaire says he is introduced to John Boyall, a James Bond character, who went on to form a new company, LRI, Legal Resource and Intelligence Research Limited. It's actually that company I've got a receipt for that was one of the first receipts that came to light that showed that LRI was used in 1998 by the fake Sheikh Mazher Mahmood when he was conducting his Sting story on me, as per the details at circusofthemind.net. That was in my claim Alex Smith versus NGN News Group newspapers. So there is no question John Boyall is mentioned on pages, let me reel this off to you, in Shadowman 98, 99, 102, 3, 4, 115, 121, 122, 23, 27, 28, 30, 33, 43, all those being got 100 in front, 48, 68, 13 and 228, a lot of pages, okay. It's mentioned a lot. That's because Christine Hart introduced John Boyall to Greg Miskiw at the News of the World. Oh, and of course, in Shadowman is the massive information and proof that Glenn Mulcaire was just a fall guy, a patsy, a scapegoat for higher up executives at News International in relation to the Millie Dowler phone hacking. So, yeah, and also you will find on page 106 of 294 Glenn mentioning being a proxy for work for the FBI, Arjun and Unitel, and also being involved with work on the peripheries for MI5, MI6 and other intelligence agencies. This rabbit hole runs really, really deep. In another book, Master of the Dark Arts by Greg Miskiw, who was a News of the World executive, Christine Hart's name is mentioned 5 times. On page 175 of 357, Greg is quoted as saying, "I followed up Christine Hart's introduction to John Boyall and Legal Resource and Intelligence Research Limited. This confirms yet again that it was Hart that introduced John Boyall to Greg Miskiw at the News of the World, and therefore in turn kind of introduced phone hacking to News International." On page 170 of 357, Greg says, it's quoted as saying, "Try this number, Greg." Christine smiled as she handed me a post-it note. On page 219, he goes into depth about the links between Glenn Mulcaire working and doing research for Mazher Mahmood, which is what happened in 1998 via LRI in my case, and Glenn kindly has given me a statement for my ongoing appeal, which will be going back to the CCRC in due course. There is another book out there called Downfall by Steve Grayson. All these books have one thing in common: they're published by Yellow Press, and they're all available on Amazon, currently in Kindle and other ebook format. Downfall by Steve Grayson used to work alongside the fake Sheikh. On page 266 of the 277-page Kindle ebook, he quotes parts of a witness statement that Greg Miskiw kindly made for me before he passed away from cancer, for me to use in my ongoing quest to get my unsafe fake Sheikh Mazher Mahmood convictions overturned. He also, in that, it mentions in that statement that Greg Miskiw was introduced to John Boyall in 1997 by Christine Hart, and that then John Boyall set up LRI. Well, that ties in because in 1998, early 98, February to be precise, LRI was engaged to perform privacy intrusion, phone hacking and surveillance on me in the sting that the fake Sheikh did, the details of which are at circusofthemind.net. He's mentioned several times in that, as well as John Boyall. So the bigger picture is that John Boyall, who if you search him on Google, you'll see he had links to MI6, MI5, intelligence agencies. There's a suggestion at the link above or below this that the full phone hacking scandal occurred as a way to get more control over Murdoch's media. In other words, this was a kind of Trojan horse. That's not something you see in Hack Attack or indeed are likely to see on The Hack on ITV. But if you read Glenn Mulcaire's book Shadowman, Master of the Dark Arts by Greg Miskiw, and Downfall by Steve Grayson, and the other books put out by Yellow Press, you'll see the evidence, documented fact that nobody is legally questioned because it's provable as guaranteed fact, that show the bigger picture and show that the rabbit hole is massive, and there's even more reasons why we should have a Leveson Inquiry Part 2 that was going to deal with governmental corruption, police corruption, journalistic corruption, and links between them all. It's a murky, murky world, and it's one that you would do well to look into more, and elements of that are reasons why my convictions, fake Sheikh related convictions, where I attempted, or at least I thought I was trying to expose the dishonesty of Mahmood in 1998. Little did I know, Lord, that he was using phone hacking, unlawful information gathering, was drugging people, using unlawful and illegal forms of surveillance and stuff, and so was always 20 steps ahead of me, and he actually knew it was my intention to expose his dishonesty, but rather than walk away from the story, because it was a non-story and he knew that, rather than do that, he decided to stitch me up as much as he could so that no attention would be drawn at any point to his dishonesty, because if people have started trying to dig down the rabbit hole then who knows, people might have discovered about phone hacking and the other dishonest and illegal things that were already going on much sooner than they did. And yet the public at large don't realise how deep this rabbit hole goes yet. You'll get more of an idea from ITV's The Hack. Yep, you will. You'll get more of an idea from reading Hack Attack. But by far, to open your eyes fully, you need to look at Shadowman by Glenn Mulcaire, Master of the Dark Arts by Greg Miskiw, and Downfall by Steve Grayson, as well as my own 2 books, Imposter, Rupert Murdoch's Fake Sheikh Exposed. All details of which you'll find on my website, circusofthemind.net.